Hey guys,
let's do this
it's
right.
Hunter here.
Let's
Hey
go
guys,
down.
Hey guys, it's Hunter here.
This
Hey
shit be
guys,
like Friday
it's Hunter here.
nights. This shit make me feel alive.
Hey guys, it's Hunter here and welcome back to my channel for another spooky video. So today I'm going to be telling you guys 3 scary true stories of people being buried alive. So being buried alive has always been kind of one of my major fears. Like, it's super scary, the thought of accidentally being buried while you're still alive and waking up in a coffin and being in such a confined space with like no air. I can't do it. It's super scary. And so I thought it would be interesting to kind of do some true stories of people that have been buried alive, whether they've survived or not, and kind of tell the story. So that is basically what I'm going to be doing today. So I'm going to be telling you 3 stories of people being buried alive that are true. So, hope you guys find this video interesting. If you do, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and also don't forget to hit the notification bell down below so that you can be notified every time that I upload so you don't miss a video. And yeah, with that, let's get on into the video. The first person that I'm going to be talking about is Angelo Hayes. So basically, Angelo Hayes was a 19-year-old from France, and one day he went on a motorcycle ride and didn't quite know how to control the motorcycle, and he actually wrecked the motorcycle and went face first into a brick wall. And when people arrived on the scene to help him and when they found him, they said that his head was very mangled and it was just a really bad scene, and he was found having no pulse. And his parents were actually even kept from seeing him because he was in such bad shape that they thought it would be so hard for them to have to see their son like that. So when he was taken to the medical officials, he was declared dead and was buried 3 days later. And basically 2 days later, after he was put into the ground, an insurance company was doing an investigation and decided to exhume his body for insurance investigation purposes 2 days after he was buried. And basically when they pulled him out, they were very surprised to find that his body was still warm. And basically it seemed like he was still alive. And they basically found that he was still alive. In fact, his body had put him into a coma-like state, a very deep coma that required very little oxygen to keep him alive because of the severe trauma that he suffered in the motorcycle accident. And so when they found out that he was still alive, they obviously took him to the hospital and put him in the correct medical care and kept him alive, and he actually went on to make a full recovery. And after that, he invented a thing to prevent people from being buried alive that he toured around France. I don't know if it ever became a success, but he became an advocate for people being buried alive. So that's pretty interesting. So that's kind of a good story. The other 2 are not as good as an ending as the first story. So the next story is the story of Octavia Smith Hatcher. So Octavia Smith in 1889 married a wealthy man named James Hatcher, and basically they had a son named Jacob. But back then, in these times, this was really a long time ago, the infant mortality rates were super high, and so their son died in his infancy, and basically this put Octavia into a very deep depression, and she was basically bedridden and wouldn't talk to anyone. And during her bedridden time, she began developing signs of a very mysterious illness. They didn't really know what it was. And basically she entered a coma-like state and was pronounced dead in May of 1891. So they pronounced her dead because she was not responding. When they tried to revive her, she wasn't responding. And so basically they buried her, and it was a very unusually hot summer in that May, and so she was buried quickly. They didn't go through the embalming process because that didn't exist at this time. And a few days later, others in the town began falling into these coma-like sleeps with very shallow breathing, and then they would awake days later, and there was a very similar situation to the situation that Octavia was in. So her husband thought, oh my god, what if I buried my wife alive? And they actually found out that this illness was from a tsetse fly. It's actually called African sleeping sickness, I believe. I learned about this in biology last year. And so yeah, it would basically put you into a coma-like state. So he panicked that he may have buried his wife alive and that she was going to wake up soon. So he had her body exhumed, thinking that, you know, she might wake up in a few days. But basically she had woken up, but he was too late. She'd woken up way before he'd gotten there. Basically they found her body, like her face had shock on it of how she died, of it being in terrible pain and probably so scared. I can't even imagine it. The lining of her coffin was shredded and her fingernails were bloody from her trying to scratch and dig herself out of this coffin. And so he unfortunately had to rebury his wife, and he erected a life monument for her grave, and he now has after that he had a super strong fear of being buried alive, which obviously is very understandable. So that one was really sad, kind of a sad story, but yeah, super scary. But also this was very long time ago, so you know, things weren't as perfect back then as obviously they would be now. And the last story I'm going to talk to you about is the story of Anna Hochwalt. And this story also takes place super long time ago. This takes place in 1884, and basically she was dressing for her brother's wedding and she sat down to rest in the kitchen, and apparently when someone came to check on her, she was found leaning her head against like a table or something, asleep, and she was apparently lifeless, and when it was trying to be revived, she was not waking up. So the medical aid was called in and the doctor pronounced her dead. And basically this was they blamed it on her. She had a little bit of heart issues. She would get heart palpitations. So basically the doctor blamed her death on this. And her friends kind of thought that this was super weird because her ears were still pink and they still looked as if blood was flowing through them. So they thought this was just really strange that she was just dead, but she still looked like she was alive. And so basically she was buried the next day, and her parents did not know about this. So when her parents were told about this, they were so confused as to how this could happen, and they wanted her body to be exhumed right away. So they dug her daughter back up and they brought her back up, and basically when they opened her coffin, they found a very horrible sight inside the coffin. Her body was turned on her side, and her fingers were gnawed to the bone, and basically her hair had been torn out in clumps. So she was not dead. She was in fact alive and did in fact try to claw her way out just like the lady before her, and was unsuccessful in doing so and ran out of air. So yeah, that is also a really sad story. So those are my three true stories about being buried alive. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was kind of a sad, depressing video, but I thought it would be interesting and some of you guys would be interested in this video. So if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe before you leave, and turn on your notification bell. And yeah, I will see you guys all in my next video. Bye guys.